All right, well, here we are, Ep.5 of Storia Stories, and it's just the two of us today.
Just the two of
So,
us.
yep, thank you for those that are watching and have come back for Ep.5. In this episode, we're going to talk about cybersecurity. So, in the last couple of episodes, we've talked about AI and app development, but we're going to come at it from a bit of a different angle today. So,
Yeah.
James, over to you. Let's open it up. In your opinion, where does the average business sit as far as cybersecurity goes? Like, as a baseline, would you say they lack adequate cybersecurity measures, or they go above and beyond?
No, probably not. I wouldn't say they go above and beyond. No. There's still, and we see it every year that pretty much every cybersecurity provider releases some sort of data set um, as like their yearly metrics or the yearly review. And they all say that it's only at least half of the Australian businesses are covered in a cybersecurity way. And then there's varying degrades of that. Oh, sorry, not degrades, varying grades of that.
Yeah,
So you go from, it's typically classed from E to A. So most businesses are sitting in the E to D area, whereas C, B, and A are on the fewer side. Like there's very few who we would say would have what we would expect in a cybersecurity um, like on an infrastructure of what we would want. Namely,
yeah,
because it costs a lot. Like it does, it's huge. It's hugely expensive. But on the flip side of that, the other side, the lower end, people are just expecting that. Oh, I have a cloud system, and that's fine. And it's like, well, it's not because every time they get hacked, you're getting exposed. Oh no, oh, man, there's actually a story comes to mind. I remember I was at a business expo once, um, here in Perth,
yeah,
and I was walking around. I was talking to people, and I met this business owner who was not interested in cybersecurity whatsoever. They're basically like I believe they ran a bookkeeping service, and they just I was talking to them about. They're like, oh, you know what? I'm fine. I don't need to worry about it because all of my stuff's on the cloud. And I'm like, that you're even more reason for you to be more cyber aware. If everything is on the cloud, you're more vulnerable. Like you have nothing that you're protecting physically.
yeah,
You're relying on the other guys to handle it all for you. And all it takes is one malicious attack to get access to your PC. Every password, every username, all your access codes, your auth codes, all your pass keys and everything are exposed. And that's it. You're done. You're done as a business from that point on because you'll be attacked. Your clients will be attacked, and everyone will lose faith. But no, this person um didn't wasn't worried about that. And then some years later, we may remember last year there was a zero outage, a huge zero outage. It was knocked out for at least 24 hours. And I got a
yeah.
call from
The
that
zero with
person
an
going,
X,
yeah, zero with an X for those who
the
don't know.
accounting software. Yeah,
Accounting software, yes. So zero was knocked out, and that person called me. They're like, I still had your card from the expo that I met you in like a year beforehand, and my zero's out, and I can't do anything. Is there anything you can do to help me? And I said, well, no, I can't. You're completely on the cloud. Like, you have no backup. You have no backup process. Physical process. You're relying completely on the solution of other people. So unfortunately, I can help protect you onwards. But in order to resolve your problem now, no, I couldn't. But that's just that is how it goes. And so to answer the original question, now that I've waffled on, no, probably not. Most businesses have some measure. Most of them do not have enough to say that you are protected. Um,
yeah,
and we get, and I can reference the data, and I'm sure I can find it. But the Australian Signals Directorate, their annual cyber review, their annual cyber threat report, sorry. So the one that came out last year, so the 24-25 one, we'll get the 25 to 26 one sometime this year.
yeah,
Um, basically says that most businesses are not up to date. Like they're not meeting the minimum requirement that we would call them cyber safe.
Yeah.
To answer the
Why
question in a very long
why
way.
do you
Yeah.
think that is? Why is that the case? And I mean that could probably be a 3 hour explanation, but
I will.
an
All right.
executive summary of
I will keep trying to keep this succinct. So first problem is money. We are we're not in a great economic climate, especially for small businesses. So you got to cut costs, and where better to cut costs than something you don't see? So cybersecurity is the invisible fence around your business, and if
mm,
you can't see it, out of mind, out of sight, or out of sight, out of mind, right? Sorry, I keep getting my metaphors reversed today. If you can't see it, then it's not something you should be spending money on until it becomes a problem, right? But then normally
mm,
it's too late. So money is one problem. The other side is, as I said before, is we're going to be fine. We're all on the cloud. We're doing as we're told. We've all bought a SaaS, and we trust them to deliver the service that we need in a protected way. So okay, that's cool. But as
so
we
an
have seen,
over-reliance.
over-reliance on digital services, right? So, and when I say digital service, I mean SaaS, so software as a service. And we're seeing that more and more, that people will just go, and it is small business owners. And again, it's not, I can't fault them. I can't fault the wider group because money, as I said, money is a problem. And if it's never happened to you, you don't know the impact. And a lot of businesses don't get cyber attacked, or at least they don't know they have.
Mm,
Um, and if you've never felt it and you never know how it's impacted you, you're not going to invest in it. It's not a pain point. So that is another thing. It doesn't become a problem until it's painful. Um, so I would say those are the two big reasons. Money and exposure. Money and exposure are the two big reasons why people don't put the time and effort into building up their cybersecurity resilience.
potentially as well, just like overwhelm or ignorance. Like, well, I don't know where to start. I don't know what it is, so I'll just leave it.
I would have agreed with that a year ago. Now there are so many simple resources available to help break down what happens in cyber attacks and what you can do to prevent it. I don't know if that's necessarily the truth anymore. Like, there's so much education out there. And it's not hard to find. It's not difficult to analyze and study. It totally comes down to um, how much you're willing to spend in investigating your own situation, right?
Yeah,
So that to me, that's what it comes down to. It's You can be educated, right? But then if you don't have exposure to it, why am I getting educated on something that I don't particularly care about?
yeah. Um, I think maybe go back quickly as well. You mentioned about not thinking they're a target or a potential target. Like, I think
Yeah,
that's in some way, like, that is kind of true, right? Because obviously the big fish are the more targeted companies, but it's certainly not the case that small businesses will never get targeted. And in fact, for certain threat actors, like, they're the preference because it is known that, generally speaking, small businesses do have inadequate
yeah,
cybersecurity measures in place. So it's kind of like that paradox in a way, where it's like, well, I'm not going to
yes,
get targeted because I'm a small business, but maybe I will because it's well known that small business have less things in place.
yeah. It's I'm sorry, I'm laughing because it reminds me of so many conversations that I have. It's like there is um New businesses are actually one of the biggest targets when it comes to cyber. It's not established just because if you're an established business, there's a higher probability that you're going to have had some interaction with a cyber threat at some point and implemented a solution. So new businesses with a lot of cash, so startups, are fantastic targets because they're all about selling it. Like they're all about selling and they're not focusing on the resilience. Um, so there is that aspect that that they are distracted in a way, and then they've got the heaps of money, and they can, not to say that existing like businesses who are well established do not get targeted. We see them get targeted all the time. Problem is we hear about that through the news. We don't hear about the ones that the small attacks for startups and that.
Yeah.
Um, what we mentioned Canvas LMS earlier. What an insane situation that was. That was what, last week, the week before. Um, it's and they paid the ransom. I mean, God, wow. Like that's something that's a huge hit. And I'm assuming, like, I don't know the full details. They haven't released it. Um, I assume their insurance covered it because they demonstrated that they had cybersecurity resilience in their business already, but it wasn't enough to stop this particular attack. So, um, yeah, yeah, I know I'm answering your question in a very long way, but it really comes down to it depends. It entirely depends on the situation,
Yeah.
how new you are in business, what you're exposed to, what you do. It's like I wouldn't say that a plumber is necessarily that exposed, right? They may have a reliance on zero. They may have a reliance on, we got a great system in Australia. I don't know if it's worldwide actually, called TradeMate. Um, that's being utilised by a lot of tradies in Australia. I know in Western Australia at least there's heaps of them. Sorry, not TradeMate, ServiceMate. ServiceMate is the name of it. And I see it being used all the time. If that was attacked tomorrow, then that's a problem for all of these trades that are utilising it, which I think is a very high percentage in WA. But for them, for plumbers and electricians and that, they just go, okay, fine, that's gone. I'm just going to go back to giving people a call, right? They don't need it. They're old school.
Yeah.
So again, yeah, it's a huge depends. It depends on the business. It depends on the circumstances, the history, how well established you are, everything.
Yeah. Um, you kind of touched on it earlier about that person that you knew with the cloud, and also like I feel like there's a lot of the time I will hear like, well, I don't handle data that is like worth stealing, or like the consequence isn't really that high. Obviously not to go down the line of like legal advice or anything like that, but did you want to touch on, like, at least in Australia, the potential ramifications of having a client data stolen? Or like, because some people be like, oh, we'll only have a few clients, so like if their stuff gets stolen, like if their name and email and date of birth
Yeah,
gets stolen, like who cares? But
yeah, that's that. Sorry, just having a sip of water there because I'm about to rant a little bit. So this everyone, every business has personal data of some sort. Might be employee, might be client base. Um, you somewhere, somehow, especially if you are business to business services, um, even product services, in order for your clients to utilize e-commerce store or your shop, you have to swipe a card or you have to tap a card. Like that is a vulnerability. Like those card those those the ATM machines, the swiping and the tapping, they are a vulnerability, right? If in business to business, it is sending invoices. The number of times it's so simple. It's just one of the most simple attacks is that a malicious attacker will be in your system. They'll know. They won't make themselves known. They will just sit there and they'll wait for something to happen. And they will see some sort of communication going, hey, send me the invoice. And all they need to do is go, cool. I'm going to intercept the email as it's being sent. I'm going to stop it from being sent. I'm going to adjust the invoice a little bit, and then I'm going to send my own so that they pay me rather than paying you. And it's super simple. Like it, from in terms of attacks, like it is easy to do that kind of stuff. And it's overlooked so many times. Or even just getting an email, like the email address is just slightly different, so the domain part of the email address is slightly different. And we don't check, we don't look at it, we don't go, oh yeah, no, that's who I'm expecting it to be from, because it looks the same. We're going, cool, yeah, that's fine. The email layout looks exactly the same. The structure of the email looks like the person. There's no red flags going off for me. We go, cool, I love that. I'm just gonna, send the invoice or send the money or whatever. We see that like that happens so often. That's more of a social engineering attack, right? So that is manipulating a human's perception, like a manipulating person's mind to believe that something is true to make them do something that isn't of benefit to the attacker. And we see that oh God, there's so many people who do that, and it's so simple to prevent. Check the email address. Just make sure that you know for a fact that that's the email address. Every time that you get a request for money, check the email address, check the invoice, double check it against previous invoices that you paid. If you see that difference, like you'll see the account number, like the account number or the BSB number is different. You go, oh, whoa, man, that was close. But we don't do it. We really don't do it all that often. We just send it off to the bookkeeper. Bookkeeper checks and goes, cool, yeah, I'm just going to process that through, and away it goes. But yeah, it happens. It happens so often that there's this, and I'm trying not to be rude about it, because we're all busy, and we've all got things to do. So looking, double checking invoices is really not the height that a high of our priority list. But
Yeah.
still, man, like just take that second, take that extra 5 seconds to just double check where you're sending your money to, because it's crazy how many times this attack happens. It's happened so often. People just sending money to the wrong account. You're on the phone to the bank, and they're like, "Hey, it was a legit transaction. We can't reverse that now." And banks don't, and I'm not going to say all banks, but most banks will not help you. They can't, because their systems are based on trust, right? They trust you to do the right thing, so you trust them to protect your money. So if you're
Yeah.
not doing the right thing, they're like, well, we're doing our part. You're not doing yours. So that there's an accountability aspect that people need to take, and we don't do that very well at
Yeah.
all. We do not take accountability for our cybersecurity infrastructure, our resilience to cyber attack. Yeah, that's you know
A a worthy tangent, but to
a
come
worthy
back to
tangent.
the question of like people's legal responsibility when they're handling other people's data,
Yeah,
like because there can be ramifications, can't there? If
there is. It's but as all right. So as I was saying, like the point of this of my rant was that you're always, as a business, you have some sort of private data. Always. It's just of varying degrees. Medical, you're right up there. Financial, you're right up there. A plumber, you're not there, but you still have personal information. You might have payment information. You have addresses. You have names and date of birth or whatever.
hmm,
It doesn't take that much to protect your clients, and and yourself by making sure that data is well protected, right? It doesn't take much to do that. So
Yeah.
in terms of legal, there is very little legal uh, requirement for businesses to protect customer data. In certain industries, there is. So some weeks ago, the anti laundering and fraud commission. I think that's what they are. Anyway, they release new rules around people who deal with large sums of money effectively. So, we're talking accountants, we're talking bookkeepers, we're talking real estate agents, we are talking lawyers, sorry, estates, that kind of stuff. A heap of them, a heap of people. A heap of different businesses now have all of these regulations, and I know it's annoying. So for any business out there who is affected by this, I feel your pain. It sucks. But there is a bigger picture. There is a bigger picture. I know they haven't rolled it out very well either. Like, I know it's not been done very well. But there is a bigger picture here, is that it helps to keep track of where things are at and who is potentially manipulating data to serve them, right? And so fraud and and laundering money is one way that these malicious attackers deal with the data that they get, right? So they pretend to be you, or they utilize your name to clean money, that kind of stuff. They don't necessarily use it to steal from you, because that's too easy and too exposed. So
Hmm.
everyone should have some sort of they should have something in place to protect their clients' data always. Certain industries have a more legal have a government or legal requirement in order to achieve it, in order to meet the requirements. They have an obligation, sorry, but there are other businesses that do not. So we're associated with 4 businesses that have very heavy requirements around data handling. Um, so we have to have very specific measures in place for those clients in order for them to meet their governmental obligations, their reporting obligations.
Hmm.
Um, but I would say everyone should, at the very least, have a basic level of protection. They should go, okay, I am taking your data. You're trusting me with your data. This is what I'm doing in order to protect it. And they have policy. They should have policy documents. They should have procedure documents to outline what they're doing with your data. If a client ever comes to you and says, hey, I've trusted you with my driver's license or my passport or whatever, how are you protecting me? And they go, cool, well, here's our policy, right? Here's our procedures document for handling customer data. And they go, oh, cool, okay, right. So it's protected in these ways. You store it here. It's like, it's locally stored and like Sydney or whatever, it's only in Australia, whatever. But there are minimum requirements that people can meet in order to make their customers feel safer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, it's not just like data theft, right? Like I think that's the go-to that people think of is like, oh, if there's a cyber attack, then my company's data or my client data is going to get stolen. But there can be denial of service, right? There can be, um,
100%.
and then it's not just what the actual attack is, but it could then be the flow-on effect, which is um, either like a day's loss of trading or more. It could be a loss of trust by clients. So then
Yep.
you've lost that client going forward. So do you want to sort of touch on them, like de denial of service or the
Well,
trust aspect?
let's talk about CrowdStrike. All right. Let's talk about Crowd. Now, it wasn't specifically a denial of service attack. So for people who don't know what a denial of service attack is, it's effectively for an online service. it is getting a heap of computers to access that service all at once, so it crashes it. So that no one else can see it. You see it heaps in video games, like with online video games, World of Warcraft, Final Fantasy 14, any MMO, COD, like League of Legends, whatever. You see it heaps in those kind of services. We've come a long way since then, so denial of service is not as easy as it once was. You need a lot of computers in order to make denial of service as effective as it once was. Before, you could get a few hundred, few thousand, and you would absolutely kill a product or a digital service. But now it's tens of thousands, millions, which is becoming, hundreds of thousands. It's a lot harder to effectively achieve that. So there's other ways that it can happen now, right? So denial of service would have been interacting or affecting a major provider that an infrastructure relies on and bringing them down. So CrowdStrike. So last year, and I know I was there right in the middle of it. That day, that whole day sucked immensely. Was it last year or was it the year before?
I feel like it was last year.
Feels like
I
it
think,
was last year. I'm
yeah,
trying to remember.
I
I
think it
think it
was
was
maybe like
July
six
of
or nine
last year.
months ago.
Yeah, something like that. Anyway, so the problem there was that CrowdStrike majorly impacted Microsoft services because they released an update which effectively deleted a file or moved a file or renamed a file. I can't remember exactly which one. It affected a file. And this file is crucial to Windows running, right? Or a server running. And it just hit every single cloud infrastructure that Microsoft had. It affected everybody who had CrowdStrike as an antivirus and anti-attack measure on their PCs. It brought down systems the world over. Like it was a huge, huge uh, impact on digital services, massive impact. And I wouldn't even say it wasn't a cyber attack. I will say that it wasn't a
Mm.
cyber attack. I'm just using it as from the purposes of demonstration. It was purely a mistake, just a super simple mistake. Something got pushed up that shouldn't have. And when I say pushed up, I mean an update was released for the software that absolutely destroyed these systems. But denial of service works like that. So they've attacked. So an attack occurs on a crucial piece of infrastructure like CrowdStrike. Now every linking service to CrowdStrike is down because of this. And you go, okay, so now the problem is from there is that no one can access these services. And it wasn't just like it wasn't just like Zero or AWS or Google or whatever. It was like airliners, airports were down, medical services
Banks.
were down, hospitals were down, banks were down, trading services were down. It affected so many people on a huge scale. If that was a cyber attack, so if someone went in maliciously and said, there's a weakness here, if I get rid of that, and I will cause this massive chain of effect, this is what we would call a mass denial of service, right? Or a distributed denial of service. It just means that they're hitting so many different places, which is why, as business owners, we need to have backups. We need to have a backup so in case something goes down, we can go, okay, cool, all right, I'm in this situation now. I've just got to take notes, right? Maybe it is. Maybe as simple as I'm going to write in a notebook now. That's all I'm going to do. For us as developers, we'll go totally offline, right? We will separate our work so that we're not working on exactly the same thing at any one time, and we can just code locally, right? That we can deal with that for a few days without it becoming a problem. And then once it all syncs back up, you just deal with the conflicts and work from there. For medical services, just go to notes. Plumbers, that'd be totally fine. The big ones are like airports, right? An airport, you can't looking out the window. If they're in the tower. I can never remember what it's called. They're in the tower. They're looking out. You can't see the planes coming in, and they're all like, "Hey, where am I?" Um, there's That's a much harder situation to deal with. But as for as many businesses that can do it, they should be looking at offline methods to deal with DDoS, or distributed denial of service.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. So another thing that comes to mind when I think about especially small businesses is, they might start up a cloud service on a reputable provider, or they might, between their colleagues or whatever, use something like your Microsoft 365. There's an assumption, I think, that comes with that like you're automatically protected, which in like a certain way you are, right? By that sort of enterprise level built-in protections.
Yes.
But do you think there is like an over-reliance on them? And is it the case that businesses should be implementing more than just that enterprise level?
Yes. Okay. So there is such a thing as having backup infrastructure, right? So we use AWS and Azure as our hosting services between the two. For some of our services, we run one system on AWS, and then we have a backup system in Azure, right? And they're replicating constantly. So that in the event that AWS goes down, Azure will then kick in, and it will all be happy days. Now that I know that sounds simple, but it is an exceptionally complex way to set up that kind of infrastructure, and this particular client needs it. But everyone, it's like when we talk to people about AI, you shouldn't rely on just the one model. It's the same thing here. For your systems, you shouldn't just be relying on the one system. I know that there's some that you can't really walk away from. Like, for instance, accounting software. Xero may be it for someone, or MyOb, or QuickBooks. Like, that's it. Like, having multiple of them is really expensive, and there's no synchronicity between them. So that's hard. You can't do anything about that. But maybe for like your email services, having an email service backup ready to go. So for instance, what I recommend with a lot of our clients is that you may use 365 or Google Workplace or something like Workspace, sorry. And then with your web host, you may have a free email service with that. A lot of them provide it because email services are cheap. So okay, in the event that something goes wrong, I can really quickly get my emails up and running through a third party, an additional party, and be back up and running again really quickly. There'll be document management. So you want to make sure that your documents are being backed up to a third party, so that in the event that SharePoint goes down, you can download it and just stick them on a hard drive somewhere. Bam, plug it in. They're all synced up to a hard drive, and now you can start using it. So there's heaps of ways that you can have someone that you can have a business run offline, or off grid as some refer to it, for a period of time. Absolutely, as long as you have the things in place. So cyber resilience isn't just about protecting yourself from attackers. It is about protecting yourself from the inevitability of your service going down, right? And that may not be an attacker. It is
Mm,
very much just, okay, something's gone wrong. I can't do this anymore. What's my backup? And
yeah.
it's this now. Okay, I'm doing more manual paperwork. That's fine. As long as you have a backup in place, you'll find you'll be good as golden. Maybe have two. Some people they go with a 3-2-1 process. They'll have three backups over two locations. One of them is offline. right? That just could be just writing notes, something like that. There's plenty of ways to do
Nice.
it.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
I feel like over-reliance, ignorance, and complacency are probably three pretty significant factors. What out of those three, like, can you share an example that like you've had a real
Where do I begin?
experience with, of at least one of those things leading to a serious breach?
So, all right, I was talking about this particular example before. Someone who had an over reliance on cloud services, right? They had nothing offline, no air gap, no. They didn't even hold their files locally. They synced them all. Um, and then during the outage last year with Microsoft services, it was all gone. They couldn't do anything. They were absolutely stuffed. Their business came to a standstill for several days, actually. I think it was almost a week. I'm trying to remember. But they, like, during this process, they called me up and they're like, "Well, I'm screwed. I can't do anything." I'm like, "Well, I can't help you. There. Sorry. There's certain things we can do at the beginning before this happens. But once the attack starts, once the incident starts, there's very little you can do to control the outcome.
Hmm.
Most of the time, it is going to go to worst case scenario unless you have the provisions there. So you go, okay, I have, my security in place, I have my backups in place, I have my offline, process in place. I am good as golden. So this person called me up and they were obviously aggravated. They were very upset. And I had already had a bad day to begin with because everything had gone offline. I had a whole bunch of very upset people calling me. Um, and it's horrible when they call you and you're basically like, I can't help you. I can't do anything. Some of them I wanted to go, you didn't listen to me 6 months
Mm.
ago, and now here are the consequences. But you can't, you can't be that way. Um, but there are definitely, there was some there that were just like, okay, you could have prevented this from happening. And there were others like, okay, we're going to get you back up and running as soon as humanly possible. We're putting in things in place and getting stuff working. Um, so this particular business owner who I didn't know all that well, right, because we'd only met once beforehand, was very upset at the fact that I couldn't save the day for them. And believe me, there's a part of me that's like, shit, I want to save the day because, I like to be that person. I like to be the one to come in with the solution and fix it and be like, yeah, man, you're up and running again. But then with it, yeah, there was nothing I could do, and it sucked, and that particular person got very angry. They said some choice words over the phone, um, and then proceeded to hang up. And funnily enough, that person is no longer in business. They couldn't actually recover financially
Wow.
from that outage. Um, and so this person was heavy. So they were a bookkeeper. They were heavily reliant on Xero and subsidiary services and Microsoft. They were using CrowdStrike. Um, so everything was shut down. Now, and to give context as well, like I couldn't fix the CrowdStrike problem because they were out of state, right? So if the computer was here and in front of me, I could turn it on, fix the problem, and then give it back to them. But anyone who was remote, like I couldn't do anything for anyone remotely. Um, so I tried to give them instructions about what they could do. Like, can you write it down? Can you, like, I was trying to text it to them, and yeah, it didn't work out. So in the end, they got very upset. They left, and then they couldn't financially recover from the outage because they were dealing with businesses that required very up to date books and finance metrics and that kind of stuff. And I don't know a lot about it, but they couldn't survive. They lost too much money and they lost clients out of that. They lost clients to people who were up and running who were running off backups. They're like, okay, cool,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, no, we've got spreadsheets here that we're going to do all your stuff in. Our IT guys have sorted us out. Our computers are back up and running. We're just running offline for the moment. They lost those clients to the people who were prepared.
Yeah.
So yeah, it sucks when that happens. And I'm feeling the emotions and kind of like the anger and the frustration of that time. And I remember being so exhausted at the end of that day, and feeling very down because I couldn't do anything for a lot of people. There were some people who didn't have CrowdStrike at all and had no problems. And they called me up like, "Hey, was there an outage today?" And I'm like, "Where the hell have you been? You've been living under a rock or something? This is global, man." And like,
Ignorance
"Oh,
is bliss.
yeah, yeah." They're like, "Oh, okay, cool, yeah, no worries." And funny enough, there were people like I'd given like Bitdefender to, like I'd given a Bitdefender license to them, or Sophos or something. So they just never experienced the problem. Um, but yeah, all in all, there's that's to answer the question, like yes, that is an example of someone who had an over reliance on cloud services, and didn't think that the inevitable would ever happen to them. And when it did, they suffered so badly that their business, after a week, basically it was a week of no business, and they couldn't communicate because they couldn't fix the PC until they got back, right? For some, yeah, we couldn't fix the PC until they got back, um, and so that was basically the end. They spent 5 days without being able to get in touch with their clients. They were constantly phoning them to do things, and their clients are going, "Well, how can I trust you to do your job if you're not even prepared for this kind of thing?"
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, no, that
So
sucked.
that's, yeah. And that's just like goes to the fact of like it's not just the attack itself, it's the fallout, it's the loss of
Yeah,
trust
yeah,
and the reputation and all the rest of it, right, that carries with you.
absolutely. It's like cyber attacks, and I've heard someone else say this. So you can akin a cyber attack in some ways to like a nuclear bomb going off. Not in the devastation, physical devastation of a nuclear bomb, but there is a psychological effect to a cyber attack going off, right?
Mm,
And the things that it affects, it just spreads, it spans, and it will keep on spreading until someone puts a stop to it. And that is what we do. But it really comes down to being resilient in the beginning and don't
yeah.
handle it too late. And it's just do the basic stuff, like simple, complicated passwords, have a good antivirus, have backups, that kind of thing.
So that like that was a specific example. Now, like on a more macro level, what would you say are like the most common overlooked vulnerabilities that leave
Well,
businesses or and their systems exposed? Like obviously it's we could probably go on quite a big list, but like what are the real common vulnerabilities?
passwords. You would think in this day and age, people would have gotten the message, but passwords are still such a problem. We see password leaks all the time. And I used to be, some years ago, I used to be that person that had one password for everything, right? And now I have, I don't know, maybe a few thousand different passwords, all just a jumble of characters that I don't even know. Um, and I have to go through a service in order to double check what my passwords are and everything like that. So passwords are a big one. We've got to stop using and putting an exclamation mark or an at sign or a few
One, two,
additional
three.
numbers. Yet 123 doesn't constitute a more complicated password. The simplest ones that I have seen is that, and they're the best way to do it. You have your word that you're using as a password. Replace some of the letters with numbers, right? Just do that. That's a good start. That's a great starting point. Then add some special characters, and some of the letters may be replaced with a special character. By all means, go and do that too. Like there are ways to make your simple password a little bit more complex so that a bot won't be able to break through it quick enough. Because that's what they need enough time to be able to figure out your password before the system figures out that you're being attacked. Just make it a bit more difficult for them, and you'll probably get by.
Mm-hmm.
The next one, and it's actually something that we should probably, we should get Eamon back for this at some point. Plugins, outdated plugins on your website. People, I don't know why, but there is this real misunderstanding that your website is not a point of vulnerability. It's not, which is not true. It really is. If you have outdated plugins, if it is a website that you access, that you jump into the back end of like WordPress or Wix or whatever, and you don't manage the packages or the plugins that go with it, you don't keep them updated, they can develop security issues. If you have a website that takes money, you do credit card transactions through them, and you have an outdated plugin, to get the credit card information from people utilizing your website is so easy. Like, it is super duper easy. As soon as that vulnerability is there and I can add some additional code to it, man, can get so much info. Just keep it updated. Or even like, you don't necessarily have to have auto updates, because sometimes auto updates can break your website. Once a month, what we do, the first Monday of every month, we go through all of our websites and update them. We don't update everything to the latest version. We go to the latest stable version. So everything we know okay, this has all the security updates, it has most of the functionality updates, but there's some weird stuff going with the latest version, so we're going to go one back just to make sure that we don't break the entire site. We do that across every plugin for every website that we have. And it's just managing it right. Because a number of times we've seen, oh, I've run your updates and now the website's down. Like, okay, right, what happened? And it's purely because they just updated a plugin too far, or there was one incompatibility. Simple
Yeah.
stuff like that. So plugins, outdated software. Make sure Windows is up to date. Just make sure. You see the green, you'll see the orange dot. Or if you have an IT company who's managing computers, you may not necessarily have to worry about this. But you'll see the update if you're on Windows. It'll say down there there's an update available. Mac, you'll see the notification pop up to go, hey, there's a new update available. Just hit it. Just take the time, download it. It won't take that long. Yes, you may lose 15, 20 minutes of your day to let the system update. Just do it regularly. Like, don't let the automatic forced update happen, because that's when things get really annoying.
Yeah.
Backups. Oh, backups. If you have OneDrive, if you have SharePoint OneDrive, you're with a business account on Microsoft and you've got OneDrive, you can set up backups through that. Simple as pie. Just it's a little switch for a couple of major root files. That's enough to get you started. Just start there. Just flick them on and do some backups. That's the great place to start. If you're wanting to do your emails and that, like, there's third-party services. Dropsuite is one of my favorites. Veeam is great. There is, oh man, what's the third one? There is a third one that Backblaze. Backblaze, they're great service. Highly recommend them as well. But there three different services you can use to back up your software and your files and everything on your PC or your Mac. Just do that. So passwords, outdated software and plugins, and backups. Those three alone will sit you above the rest when it comes to cyber resilience. Just
Yep.
starting there. It'll be crazy, like, how much more protected you can be.
Can I add one more, which is like the most common as well, is people. And it's not so much for small business, right? But
Yeah.
like, even if you are a small business and it's just you and your partner or something, like having a baseline level of education and awareness, probably more than
Yeah.
education, like you were talking about before about the social engineering and the spoofing of website domains and like phishing
Mm.
emails, like the difference between being aware and not. Like, and it's
Yeah,
very well known that people are the weakest links in cybersecurity.
yep, 100%. I couldn't agree more. There is, I think, as I said earlier, there's plenty of education resources out there. We partner with one great education provider, who also has a simulation for phishing scams. It's awesome. Um, so if you're watching and you're wanting to learn more, or you're wanting a bit of cyber resilience, come and talk to us. We'll give you some licenses. Um, but these guys, like, you get connected to their account, and it will just send you, like, you set up a campaign for like a month, and it would just go, during this campaign, you identified this is a phishing scam. You identified this is a phishing scam. This one got through. You would have been taken by this. So, and they're very good. Like, they're very realistic. So there's some there
Hmm.
for AWS as a service that we use, and that I've put up as a simulation scam for myself. And I've had the email come through, and I almost click on it. And I'm like, well, hang on. The only reason that I didn't think about it is because I knew I had the scam going. And I was like, I had the campaign running, and I was like, oh man,
Yeah.
I should double check it. And I did, and it was the wrong email address, and I had to send it off. But it's very realistic. So yeah, 100%. Just take the time to get educated.
And like
Look up.
we're not talking PhD level education. We're like baseline,
Yeah, how to
real
make a
baseline.
secure password, how to identify a potentially malicious email, how to identify a potentially malicious file. You know, like the first points of those are just, oh, don't, don't open anything from anyone you don't recognize, right? It's like stranger danger. You don't,
Mm.
when you're a kid, you're taught stranger danger, don't get into the back of the white van. It's the same thing here. Don't open the dodgy email unless you're 100% certain of it.
Yeah,
Um,
or like just switch, yeah, like the criminal system where it's like innocent until proven guilty. If like the email system, instead of trust until you don't
yeah,
trust until you can trust. So literally just flip it.
100%. There's an advanced concept in cybersecurity called the zero trust model, zero trust architecture. Um, And that's effectively what it is. You trust nothing until verify. Till verified.
Hmm.
Verify, then trust. That's it. That's the whole concept around, is that you verify everything before it has access. That's not realistic for a lot of people. I understand that. But that is definitely the way that we should be going. But it is a very advanced concept at the moment, um, because it requires a lot of infrastructure changes in order for you to effectively do correctly.
Yeah, nice. So some of the stuff we've spoken about is quite simple, but
Yeah.
at what point does cybersecurity become like too complex or risky for businesses to manage without
Right.
like getting professionals involved?
So cybersecurity becomes a professional matter when the cost the cost of doing it, the cost of getting it wrong outweighs the cost of getting it done.
Yeah.
Right. So that's fundamentally when it is. So if you sit back and you go, okay, on average in Australia, most cybersecurity attacks and ransoms, you would have to pay approximately $40,000 to $60,000 in order to have your data returned to you. Can you afford that? Do you have insurance to afford that? Or can you suffer the loss? Right? Can you suffer the loss of data and just start from scratch? Those are the three things you need to think about. If you can do it and you're like, yeah, no, done, I can pay it, or I've got insurance to cover it, or I'm happy to start all over again with no data, then great. Cybersecurity may not be for you. You'd be part of an exceptionally small percentage, but sure, go for it. If you can't do any one of those things, then you need to talk to a cybersecurity professional. That's it.
And it is also the case, and correct me if I'm wrong, that cybersecurity isn't a one and done thing, right?
No,
It needs to be constantly reviewed, adapted, evolve. And so if
100%.
you got if you got a consultant in 12 months ago and you think you're protected for life, probably not.
Yeah, well, we need to remember that the bad guys in this situation are outdoing the good guys who are protecting us, right? They are constantly evolving. We can't catch up to them. AI has changed the game for us, which has been fantastic. We've had some greater flexibility in our defensive strategies, but they're still ahead because they're using AI too, right? So we are closing the gap, but the gap is still there. So it is constantly evolving. It is constantly changing the types of attack. There's new types of attacks every week. We see them all the time. And it might be just a slight variation of an old attack, but now it's new and improved. So the system doesn't know how to deal with it yet, right? That's what we need to be. That's what we need to be dealing with. And it takes, as much as I hate to say it, in this day and age with cybersecurity, you need someone representing you on a cyber front constantly, not just once off, but forever, right? Like pretty much like until we know that there is zero way that anyone can access our systems and do malicious damage. You need a cybersecurity expert on your side.
Yeah. Cool. And I
Sweet.
believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but Storia offer that kind of service.
Yeah. Oh yes, selfish plug. Um, yes,
But
absolutely we
just
do.
just to clarify though, because we have spoken about, app development and stuff like that, but cybersecurity is also a wing, right?
Yes, it is. So from a cybersecurity perspective, we do offer the service. So we don't do IT. We focus purely on cyber. We are a cyber first agency, cybersecurity first agency. Um, and that effectively means that everything we do comes at it from a security perspective. If you are someone who is implementing a custom software with us, or you're implementing a product, we build based around the security of that system, and it's the same thing for your infrastructure. We'll come in, we'll do a review, we'll literally sit down with you. I have a booklet with questions in it, and I will write down the answers, or I'll type them into my laptop, and it is purely that's where we start off. That's how we do our review. We will generate a report from that, and then from that report we come up with recommendations. You can either continue with us to do the recommendations, like we'll implement them for you, and we can charge you the cost of the licenses, or there's a managed service that we provide where we effectively cover everything. Um, or you can take that report and go and do it yourself. We have the recommendations in there. You just go pick the software that you want to do, and you can go pay the license. So it's entirely up to you. But again, if you're going to do it yourself, you have to be on top of it. Like you pay us, we're on top of it. We do it every month. So we go through a full security review at the beginning of every single month once we've implemented your solution. And then we sit down with you and we go, cool, here's the hazards. Here's the things that I'm worried about. Here's the things that we're doing well. Here's the situations we've prevented from happening. That's effectively what our managed services is. Um, Best case scenario, you never talk to us. You only talk to us once a month. If you have to talk to us, typically it means that there's a problem.
Yep. So hopefully you don't talk to us.
Yeah, hopefully you don't talk to us too much. Once a month.
Yeah.
Once a month should be good. Yeah.
Yeah. Also, I just wanted to go back and touch on one thing, which is you
Sure.
mentioned about insurance. Like if you have insurance, then all good. But
Yep.
that's more nuanced, right? Because just because you have insurance doesn't mean you're automatically covered, because we all know insurance companies like to wiggle out of things. And if they can
Yes.
prove that you didn't have adequate protections in place and didn't do your due diligence, that insurance that you thought you had might not actually come
Yes.
through.
Yes. Well, going back to the story that I was talking about earlier, this business owner, the bookkeeper, didn't have insurance, so nothing that they had. So a lot of people got payments, like they could file a claim for the losses, and they could get some money back. This person didn't have that because they had nothing in place to show that they were prepared for it, right? So there's the problem. You need to demonstrate that you're meeting the minimum requirements, right? So I can't go and get insurance if I haven't got any kind of antivirus or anti-malicious attack software installed on all of my PCs. So for you, for me, for our development team, everyone needs to have some sort of antivirus, and I have to prove that to the insurance agencies and say this is what we have in place so that we can continue our policy. Same thing for cybersecurity insurance for most small businesses is that they have to demonstrate when they call up and they go, oh man, I'm being cyber attacked. They're going to go, what did you have in place to prevent this from happening? And do you have backups? Are you ready? Are you ready to go offline and continue working, or do you have a way to bring yourself back online without the assistance of the insurance company? And effectively, if you can go, I have protection, I'm ready to go offline, and I can bring myself back online if I needed to, they'll go, cool, yeah, we're going to cover you. You're good. But if you can't answer any one of those questions, they will go, sorry, we can't cover your policy, right? Because you were not protected. You didn't do your due diligence in order to make this work. So now I am not in any way, disclaimer right here, I am not an insurance representative, nor am I a broker of any sort. So go and talk to your insurance broker. And if you don't have cybersecurity insurance, why? Please just get it and do the minimum requirement to make sure that you will get paid out. Everyone should have it. It's like for IT, right? You pay your insurance. Why wouldn't you have your IT guy? Here's your insurance for your IT. Cybersecurity is exactly the same thing. Anything that's going to cost you money in a big way should be covered by your insurance. Don't take the risk. Just go get a policy out and meet the requirements. Absolutely.
Yeah. Nice. That's
Sweet.
a good little way to end. All right. Do you have anything else to say for cybersecurity? Is there anything that's been sitting there that I haven't?
The one thing that I will sign off with this is that don't underestimate what the future holds in terms of cybersecurity. There are a lot of cyber professionals out there, quote unquote. There are a lot who are being churned out by industry. I wouldn't call them educators, but there's some training institutes that are churning out IT professionals and cyber professionals who are not up to adequate squash to be in this field. Cyber is hard. It is probably one of the hardest, like outside of custom development, full-on custom development, maybe like in game development, in terms of technology, cybersecurity is hard. It is super duper hard. It is hard to get right. It is hard to maintain. It is hard to follow through. That is the nature of it. You need someone with that personality of like, okay, I can do this and I can persevere and that. So be aware of who your cyber person is. You can go with us by all means. We're cybersecurity trained professionals. But not everyone who gets churned out by these education institutions they do not have the real world experience to be able to tackle these events that are happening. They don't have the thoroughness in order to go through and work out what the best solution is on a business by business basis. So just be aware of who your provider is. Check with your IT guys. If you have an IT company, make sure that they're doing the requirements for your insurance agency. If your insurance provider has said to you, yes, you can have this policy, and if you want to make a claim, you need to be meeting these requirements, take that to your IT guys and say, are you meeting these requirements? And if they go, oh shit, no, we're not, then you go, cool, how much is it going to cost for me to get from here to there?
Yeah.
And if you don't have anyone, go and find a cybersecurity specialist. IT stuff can be done internally. Cybersecurity is not something I'd recommend for you to be doing internally. Go and find a provider. Come find us. Go and find someone else. There's plenty of great ones out there, but just have a chat to them and see what you need.
Nice.
So, yeah.
What
right.
more could be said?
That's right. Shameless plug.
Alrighty. Shameless plug. Storia.tech.
Yeah.
Thank you guys. That's a wrap for Ep.5. And thank you, James. And
Awesome.
Ep.6. See you then.
See you at Ep.6. Thanks, Jordan.